Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. This is Pastor Darren Lamont Edwards, and I wanted to greet you with the joy of Jesus and deal with really very delicate emotion called grief. I'm the lead pastor of United Believers Community Church and have been privileged to serve in this capacity for several years. But I'm one too who struggles with this issue of grief, and I want to help you navigate through this valley that seems like a shadow of death that even David said that when he goes through it, he's learned not to fear evil. And so, child of God, if you will give me just a few moments of your time, and let me just give you a caveat that if I hit a particular emotion that's too much for you, turn off the video and start it again when you have the strength to navigate through it. But I want to help you find comfort as you journey through your loss. I know that pastors are quirky and will say things like, it's not lost when you know where it is. Sounds good during the homegoing celebration. But the fact of the matter is, the next day, it's a loss. A loss, that person's not there. It's a loss, the laughter and the humor is not there. And so I want to give you how to grieve with hope. Hope for your future, hope for your present, hope for your new reality. And so if this means something to you, maybe you'll call somebody and text somebody and tell them that this virtual Bible lesson, this conversation with Pastor Edwards on grief, if it's helping you, maybe it'll help somebody else too. So let's get into it. One of the first things I want you to understand about grief is simply this. It comes in waves. Some days you're doing fine, and some days it's just like this quote. Missing you comes in waves because right now I'm drowning. Have you ever felt that? Some days it seems like you can swim through all kinds of currents, but there's some days where the turbulent waters seem to overtake you. That's what grief feels like. I remember when I first grieved over the passing of my father. Being a pastor, I tried to do the things I thought I needed to do to hold myself together and be strong. But it was really when I began to grieve, I was washing dishes in my kitchen, looking out my window. And that moment, I felt the wave of grief. That's when it hit me. All the other times seemed to be okay, but it was that moment I'll never forget. It hit me. It really hit me. And so, am I talking to you? That's sometimes how grief feels. But also, watch this. And one thing I want to help you with is that the Bible is clear that God is with those who grieve. Yes, he is. Psalm 147 verse 3 says he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. So watch what it teaches us. People who grieve are wounded. People who grieve are brokenhearted. So don't just look at the victorious voice of the text, but look at how it speaks to the inflicted, how it informs the inflicted in the text. The victorious voice is that he heals the brokenhearted and he binds their wounds. That's the victorious voice, but look at how it informs the inflicted. They're wounded and they're brokenhearted. In Psalm 91 verse 4, it says, he will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and your rampart. That's good news for someone who's struggling with the issues of grief. But I have more for you. One of the things about grief I want you to know is to stay true to you. Stay true to you. God doesn't expect us to put a plastic smile on a broken heart. And listen, you ought to give me some thumbs up and hearts on that one. Stay true to you. Don't put a plastic smile on a broken heart if that's not just where you are. It's okay not to be okay. But when you have God in your life, it's not okay to stay not okay because God wants to make a brighter day for you. A brighter day will come. It's there down the road somewhere, but it might not be today. So you don't have to put a plastic smile on a broken heart. Stay true to you. So let me give you some truth then. And this truth sometimes stings, and it's an issue of grief. Is when you start to think about that this person that has gone on to glory or passed on, you're everywhere except right here. And that's what hurts. You know, you can think on the glorification side of life, hey, they're in a better place. But the fact is, you're not in this place. You're everywhere except right here. And that's what hurts me. That's truth. That's grief. So time doesn't heal all wounds, but time spent with Jesus does. I'm not trying to put a band-aid on a serious illness, but I believe I have some witnesses who will say staying involved in active Christian worship has helped me. Staying engaged with the saints, even if it's for an hour, 30 minutes. I worship and I'm out. I'm not ready for fellowship. I'm not ready to kick it. But just to come get the singing and the word of God has helped me. So time doesn't do it. Let me tell you, I'm on the latter side of several years of my father's death, my brother's death, and several others who meant so much to me. And I know many of you can go even more years than that. And you can testify time doesn't heal all the wounds. But time spent with Jesus helps to put salve on it. Are you with me? Let me show you something else. So let's deal with your house. And I'm not talking about your physical house, but your spiritual house. How do you deal with grief? Don't laugh at my artwork. See, I try to help you with your grief. I try to bring some relief to your grief by showing you my artwork. Look at the foundation. Values that govern your life. What are the values? What are your core values that govern your life? Time with God, relationship with family, whatever those things you value. That's your foundation. That's what's going to hold you up. Okay? So at the foundation, I want you to put your values. Your values got to be strong enough to hold up what we're getting ready to talk about. Okay? So if you don't have great values, your house will collapse because that's your foundation. On top of your foundation is describe your grief journey. Describe your grief journey. How has your grief journey been so far? Put it down 2 or 3 sentences. How's it been? Now, if you notice the door says people you let in, which means everybody's not allowed into your grief journey. You got to understand who will support you and who will protect you. Those who are the people you let into your grief journey. Everybody, whether they're family, church member, pastor, deacon, elder, whatever they are, they just don't get a permissive pass to your grief journey. Unless you know for a fact these are those who have supported you and protected you, they're not allowed to come into your grief journey. So describe your grief journey, 2 or 3 sentences. On top of that, Deal with things that have helped you cope with your grief. What are the 3 to 5 things that help you to cope with your grief? Church attendance, crying, traveling, dressing up, going out, positive things. You may need to put some of the negative things too, because you need to work those out of your life. But they've helped you cope. And I'm going to leave that alone. But they've helped you cope with the negative things. You need to weed those out. But you may want to list those there too, so you can see what you've been doing to yourself while you've been grieving. On top of that, positive things that have come from your grief journey. What's some positive that's happened? You see a renewed you, a new normal is emerging in your life. And then at the top, what are your hopes for your future? That you've got to move past, move ahead. Notice I didn't say move on, because you never really move on. But you can move past, you can move ahead, but you really never move on. And so I wanted to give you this house example to help you frame how to evaluate your grief. I hope it helped you. It helped me. So the task of grief, task of grief. Most people identify grief with a tier. So let's break it down by tier. TEART. To accept the reality of the loss. It comes. I tell you, when it first happens, it don't feel like it happened. And then it hits. Then you have to accept the reality that this happened. E, embrace or experience the pain of the loss. My goodness, you gotta, and that's so tough to do. Your body goes through that shock absorbent stage where I gotta embrace the pain of this. And then A, I gotta adjust to the new environment without what I've lost. And may I submit that loss is just not a person. It could be a person, place, or thing. Some people grieve because they have to change to a new place. Some people grieve because they've lost a certain thing. Some people grieve because they've lost a person. Ours, then now I've got to reinvest in my new reality or my new normal. Am I making sense? You might want to take a snapshot of that, because that'll help you as you go through your grieving cycle. Let's go. So Walt Disney says the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. You got to quit. I know. Listen, I know. I got to get started. I know. To take that first step through that valley into that dungeon is a tough step, but you got to eventually take it and know that God is with you. So God grant me, you know this, the serenity. Lord, give me the serenity, the sanity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference. That's what grief share is that we share grief together and we journey through it together. And it's been my hope as the lead pastor of United Believers Community Church, your brother, your friend, your community pastor, your internet pastor, however you view me, colleague, that I've shared something with you as you grieve. So in the final analysis, you can have good grief. We grieve with hope. That's what 1 Thessalonians 4:12 says. We grieve with hope. See, grief is the last act of love we can give to those we loved. And where there is deep grief, there was great love. I tell people the deeper you love, the deeper you grieve. It's a real thing. So, friend, family member, church member, brother, sister, I'm praying for you. I know what it feels like, but I don't know how you feel. And I'm not trying to understand how you feel. I want to help you navigate through how you feel so you can feel better than how you feel. It's okay not to be okay, but let me tell you something else. As pastor, I don't think this is it. There comes a time where you may need not just theology, but you need therapy. And I'm a strong enough pastor to know that I can't give you everything you need. You may need to go sit down and talk to a professional counselor, someone you can really divest. Can you do it with a pastor? Yes, you can, but every pastor is not equipped to deal with the deep trenches that deal with us. Nor should a pastor, because he's your spiritual guide. So sometimes you need to divest with someone whom you don't know that can point you to what you do know. It makes sense? So I want to give you that help. I want to give you that instruction. Again, the Bible declares that we can have good grief. He said we can grieve with hope. So I want to give you that. I pray that you'll share this video with a friend, a family member, a loved one. And hopefully I said something that has strengthened you, encouraged you. Maybe watch it again and again until you get to the point where you can say, me too, Pastor Edwards. I now have good grief. Until next time, peace.